Most people in life are looking for how do I make love to someone who I've not seen in a long time. When I say this, people might be shocked at the beginning of my speech. The reality is we're looking for a way to make love to their soul. We want to know, how do I show someone how much I love them? How do I prove that there is nothing superior in my life to them other than Lord God? How do I show them that I will be loyal, faithful, and true? How do I make the birds sing like you hear in the background now? So that she knows that she's the one for me. Because I know that I'm the one for her. The truth is, in our lifetime, we meet people along life's journey. They do all sorts of things in our lives. They help us, they mature us, they season us, they teach us many things. Sometimes we pick the right partner to help us grow, and then there's a time where that partnership no longer works. Other times we get inklings sort of along the way that it wasn't exactly the right fit, and we could have said no at the time, but we were so in love that we thought, this will be outgrown at some point. I can recall that moment of hearing a voice saying, she's going to be like this. And I recognized that that was fairly true, but my gal from a foreign country in a foreign land did lots of things to grow herself to be with me. She gave up her home country. She gave up her mother's love, if you will, by leaving her long time without being in her presence. And that was hard for that mother, I'm pretty sure, because she was probably expecting her loving daughter, a nurse, to tend to her and care for her. She called her on occasion and had conversations, and when we didn't see each other, sometimes I would call her mom's house and check to see where she was, and her mom was always really polite, and I spoke in my best Japanese, and she would speak in her best Japanese so I could understand her, and not in Hyogen, which is a dialect form that's across the land in Japan, and you have to know the word roots of the Japanese language to know what anyone's saying when they speak in dialect. Because it's the word roots, the verbs, if you will, that make all the difference. Now, when I'm with myself and sort of not by myself, I might swear in Japanese because I swear like most men, but I don't want to be offensive to anyone's ears. It's a very rare thing when someone is actually a Japanese speaker and knows enough Japanese to know those swear words. I know that in my lifetime, I purchased a litany of Japanese books that I purchased overseas in special, unique places that you cannot find them here in America. They would cost hundreds of dollars to bring in through the different importers, and openly, no one has the right to take those from me. Now, when I'm talking about these items, I looked for them the other day because I needed them for a project I was working on, and I found that the bin that they were supposed to be in was not where it was supposed to be. In other words, my items that were in that bin a couple weeks ago were no longer there. I never sold those items, I never gave those items away, I never said to someone, you may have these items, and I never allowed any person to go into my storage unit. I always did the work. My family, if they came along for the ride, if I didn't have a vehicle anymore, would sit in their car. But that doesn't mean that they didn't illegally take a set of copies of keys of my locks, or that a person who works at a place like that can't unlock locks. What I found in those bins was something odd. Negatives from my life. Not all of them were there. Most of my things of negatives and photography I had placed in one special bin. So all the slides, all the negatives, all the photographs, everything that I paid for in Japan to be printed would be together. What I found was that most of those images were gone. The negatives may or may not be there. They could be empty envelopes for all I know. And I have to wonder what destructive, monstrous person would do something like that to another human being's life. What kind of person thinks, first and foremost, that they will do something unlawful to someone? Second, what kind of monstrous person thinks they have the right to take away a person's history and photographs? We all cringe when tornadoes and hurricanes devastate people's homes to the point that they have no keepsakes and no photographs of their families left. But I have to wonder, what kind of monster does that in their own hurricane and own tornado storm in someone's life? What kind of monster did not was not raised correctly to know right from wrong, to know lie from truth, to know that their rights ended with them and did not begin with someone else. I have to know what kind of mother or father is mentoring this kind of monstrous behavior into a child, or making them be a lookout for them while they go in and steal and do things immorally in an apartment home, in a house, in a business place, or a workplace. You see, there are people who don't understand the law. I just went to a little donut shop to buy 2 donuts and a few donut holes just because it was time for breakfast. And openly, that was what I wanted to pay for this morning, and I get tired of going to the same places over and over again for food. But openly, the young man there only charged me for 1 out of the 3 items. I really struggled with that because A, he's not the owner. B, he didn't say this is really our policy and we do this to be generous to people. And C, he just said, I'll just give it to you. I didn't really like that because I don't know what I'm obligating myself to. I didn't obligate myself to him. I didn't solicit him for a deal. I didn't even ask for one. I was prepared to pay the whopping $3 some that it was going to cost. But he just thought he'd gift it to me. Now, when a lovely lady did that to me the other day, when she gave me a half a donut more because it was broken, I thought nothing about it because that was what most bakers would do. They would pick someone that thought would be appreciative, and they would do that. They wouldn't just give it to anyone. That's sort of the sweetness of a woman giving it to a man. But when a young man does that to an older man, he feels somewhat insulted. Because, is my money not good enough for your business? Has someone lied to you about my prosperity or told you the truth about my finances? It doesn't really matter. It was how it was handled that made it feel illicit, illegal, immoral. You see, that young man is not the proprietor of that establishment. I don't know what the internal policies are. They may have an internal policy standardization that simply says, whatever someone wants, give them double. That will keep them coming back always. That's a good policy. When you under-promise and over-deliver. But in truth, it's sort of a thieving process based on the education I received in my history of working in retail food that basically said, this is your drawer. You're responsible for this drawer completely until your shift is over. The other day I was in Kroger and openly discovered that the girl who was taking over a shift of someone lovely literally didn't have her name on the drawer. She was still working off the drawer of the previous girl. How do I know that? Because the name that came up on the receipt was not hers. I mentioned it to her and she said she knew, but I had to wonder, maybe they just don't care and they don't mind, but God forbid something go missing, and financially, how are they going to know which employee did what? You see, there are rules and there are standards of processes and standards of operations, or standard operating procedures, like we used to call in manufacturing, that help us to ensure quality of service delivery. And when I talk about these things, I'm of course talking as a marketing person, but I'm also talking as a pastor of saying, what are we teaching our millennials about their rights? You see, a person who's willing to steal something if it's against policy is willing to do a lot more to other people to feel a sense of power, a sense of superiority. And I didn't need a 17 or 18-year-old young man feeling a sense of superiority over me as a 50-year-old. He doesn't know my life story. He shouldn't know anything about me. And openly, what was interesting is that as soon as he delivered the service, he went back to the back of the place and got on his phone. That sort of felt like a setup. Now, I realize that people are attached to their phones today. They don't think anything about texting or tweeting. But the reality is there are technologists out there are young people out there who are learning this in school, and they're learning how to steal information through what people say on their telephones. It's called social engineering. It's been around for at least 5 years in that topic form, and openly it is a gift of nothing to take information and utilize it in an illicit, illegal, immoral way. When I talk like this, I'm talking as a marketing man saying, what are your standard operating procedures? Do you have a quality assurance process in place? Have you literally understood that client retention is based on a person knowing precisely what they can expect from you, and that they're not looking for special treatment when they come back because you gave it to them the time before? You see, that creates difficulties in client-customer relations. If I was a certain type of person, I might go back in and go, well, he gave me such a deal last time, why do I have to pay full price this time? And that's a risk that those type of people play. The way the girl handled it was precisely beautiful. She said, hey, listen, I'm going to give you this tube because it's broken and I can't sell it, and you deserve it. And that was a kind thing for her to say. Now, in life, we have moments of time to make all the difference in the world for someone else. The only question is, what are we doing? Are we doing it with our own glory in mind? Or are we doing it to honor the Lord God in heaven? Because we all know at some point we go home to nirvana or to heaven. At some point we go home and see the Lord. And at some point we're accountable for everything we've done in life. There's a few things in my lifetime that I regret. Mistakes I made, dumb decisions I thought about. At the time seemed right, but later on, as I matured, I recognized might not have been perfect. But the truth is, for the most part, I've tried to live a moralistic life, meaning that I believe God loves everyone, that I believe that we are accountable to Him completely, and that I have learned that by submitting my life to Him, I've gained so much magic in my life, it's not even funny, and yet I'm in poverty at the moment. I know that out of the ashes, phoenix rise, but I also know that a life force like mine, a male life force who loves someone very much, is never going to feel unloved from the Lord. You see, it's life, liberty, and love that the American country is basically founded on. And when we're talking about life, love, and liberty, we have to understand that life is the life we choose to make with the other people we long to have in our life. Because their life forces, their security of nature, or their communication style, or their spirit, their soul, so speaks to our heart, mind, and intellect that we just can't fathom life without them in our life. How many times in your lifetime have you met someone like that? In my lifetime, I've only had that 3 or 4 times across almost 50 years of life. Sure, I can remember every name of every girlfriend from the time that I was in kindergarten all the way up through the college years when I matured and had a more serious relationship. And I could probably list them one by each grade that I had a girlfriend in. But the truth is, they loved me just as I was. They saw the soul of me, they saw the spirit of me, and they honored me with that. Sometimes other people would too, but it was always a mockery. Now, in my life, I don't have to talk about my life to say, what's your life like? You see, when I share part of my life with you in a transparent, authentic way, I'm really encouraging you to look at your life. I'm really saying, in your life, who do you love? In your life, how do you show that love to them? And in your life, are you showing them love in the manner in which they understand? You see, I did that one time. I just tried to woo a girl's heart. I tried to say, look, at this moment in life, when you're going through this struggle, I want you to focus on loving your children. I want you to focus on having playful moments with them. So I'm going to send you more in the mail than I would normally send another human being. First and foremost, because I adore you and I love you, and I want you to know every second of this difficult time that you're going through that another man absolutely loves you. Full, wholeheartedly, unconditionally loves you. I also want you to recognize that I acknowledge you have children, and that those children are precious to you, therefore they are precious to me. And when I speak like this, I mean that I love you, and because they're of your loins, because they came from your body, because they came from your rearing, because they came from your parenting, I love them too. I don't have to know them perfectly well to love them. I just have to know that they mean the world to you, and therefore they mean the world to me. It's a simple concept to love someone else's children like that. When I was a parent of another man's child, he became my child fully. I paid for his life, I paid for his education, I paid for his mistakes for sure. The family paid in time and loss of life and love and liberty. But when I talk on life, love, and liberty, I'm talking about the rights of people to decide what they're going to buy into. When we pay for a service, we expect certain things in response, in return. When we go to the bank, we expect specific procedures based on our lifetime of going to banks. When we get a worse situation because someone is too young, too immature to understand the world and the technology in it, or they lie to themselves about what is really possible, we lose regard for them, we lose respect for the institution, and we don't always get what we pay for. In other service provisions, we have to know, what are we getting? How are we getting it? What are we doing to receive it? in fast food, in restaurants, and every other thing, we have to look at what is it that we're paying for. We're paying for something really simple: a sanitized delivery of food service, a safe way to consume edibles that allow us the proper nutrition for our bodies. We are looking to make sure that we're not having our food tainted or laced with something to cause us to sleep, so that we lose our property, our possessions, our paperwork, our checkbooks, or anything like that. When we purchase and pay for the rental of a storage unit, we're expecting that that grounds is protected by video cameras today, that we're expecting that there are alarms that go off if someone opens it that shouldn't be there. In other words, is there a fob that matches up to the human being, that has the keys to the locks that are on the unit? We also expect there to be cameras on the aisles to make sure that the persons going in are really the persons who own the place, which means the individuals who do the management have to know every single human being. They have to be able to recognize them when they're at their particular unit, and they have to know that no one else should be going into those units, especially if that person's not present. The payment of a bill is not always acceptance or acknowledgement of a situation. What I mean is, as I've been in my impoverished state, I have a mother that has promised to pay a very inexpensive security bill for me at a storage unit, meaning she's paying that monthly fee because I haven't been able to, because of how my life has gone. Normally, I would pay it all by myself without a problem. But in this moment in time, I've had need and rely on her. Now, when I ask for a receipt, she insists she can't get one, which is a lie. I've had receipts come to me in mail. And yet, right now, I've not received any receipts for the longest time. I'd like to be sure, 100% sure, that she's paid for that unit. I'd also like to make 100% sure that she's not being manipulated out of her money if someone's going in and stealing my property. You see, theft of property is illegal, it's incredibly immoral, and it's absolutely illicit. It's illicit behavior where someone thinks they have the right to access someone else's life goods. They don't, and anything stolen puts them in a problem with the Lord. You see, the Lord is the one who helps us to find things in life. The Lord is the one who directs our steps in truth, and the Lord is the one that provides us deals on things that we would have never gotten on our own if God hadn't been present in that human being who priced it or the individual who sold it. Now, in life, we have moments of time to make all the difference in the world for someone else. What is it that you are doing in this moment in time in your life to ensure that people regard you, love you, and want you in their life? In life, we have moments of time to decide what kind of human being we're going to be. Are we going to be an immoral one that breaks all the rules and social cultural etiquettes of the land, or are we going to be someone who is moral, who knows the laws of the U.S. Constitution, who recognizes the laws of local enforcement, and who openly recognizes the privacy rights of all human beings? Now, at this moment in time, I'm going to wrap up and say one last thing. In life, the life force of someone else is theirs to control. Their body, their personhood, their heart, their mind, their soul, their property, their paperwork, all belongs to that individual. It doesn't belong to any other human being in the land. And that is something we must take on completely if we're to go forward in a political climate of people really understanding how rights are violated.